Hello, and welcome to another full moon forecast. We are looking at the full supermoon in Aquarius, and that will be on the 1st of August 2023. So I think this is the third supermoon, super full moon, and this month we have two full moons. So we have one on the beginning on the 1st, and I think the next one might be on the how many days in August? The 30th or the 31st. So that's a blue moon when you have two full moons in a month, often called a blue moon. Although there's some debate whether that has to be in the same sign, and these will not be in the same sign. This one is an Aquarius full moon, and the next one will be a Pisces full moon. But that's just a little aside. So this is the Aquarius full moon, which means that the moon is in Aquarius and the sun is in Leo, and we're working with that dynamic duo of that polarity, the axis of two signs, which is always the case at full moon. And just remember that I've set this for where I live. So where you see Pisces on the ascendant here, that may not be the case for you unless you're living where I'm living or near enough. It might look slightly different, but where the planets land, in what degrees and what signs, that will be universal. So here is the sun at 9 degrees of Leo, and you can see the strong red line like a tug of war between that and the moon at 9 degrees of Aquarius. And that is what a full moon is oftentimes, is a tug of war. Two differences of opinion. The sun wants to go one way, the moon wants to go another. And in some ways, I like to think of it as a healthy conflict, because I'm kind of naturally conflict averse, and certainly part of my journey right now is learning how there is such a thing as healthy conflict. Not all conflict is bad and to be terribly feared and avoided at all costs. Those uncomfortable conversations where we say things that we're feeling and intuiting, and hear the other person's reflection, even if it is opposing our own, is not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes we need this other perspective to kind of glean new information, or they need the other perspective in order to do that. In fact, more than likely, both parties need to hear what the other party has to say. So always a full moon is this opportunity for us to have a healthy conflict where we air our differences of opinions. And right now the sun is sitting very happy in his own sign of Leo, shining brightly. And this is not always the case with Leos. Leos actually oftentimes don't like the stage so much, even though Leos are kind of known to be the one that likes to take the stage and, larger than life and shining really brightly. Sometimes Leos hate that they are this kind of charismatic persona and kind of turn heads with their energy even when they don't want to. So when I say the sun is sitting pretty, and happy birthday to all of those Leos out there, that's not always how it feels when you are a Leo. And so I just want to point that out, that it's just, not every Leo has got a ginormous ego, and there is a difference between having a healthy ego, which everyone should have, because this is the essence of fire, and Leo is a fire sign, is it's about me. It's the kind of the source. It's source light. It is. And we should have this natural ability to just shine from within ourselves. Aquarius, on the other hand, where the moon is sitting, is more of the group. So if we think of Leo as the queen and Aquarius as the queendom, or Leo as the king and Aquarius as the kingdom, we realize that Aquarius is a little bit less aware and engaged in the self energy that Leo is about, and more in the collective. Like, how do we make this work for everyone? So the moon being about how we nourish our needs, she is wanting to nourish group consciousness. She is wanting to nourish hive mind. She is wanting to support the collective, but she's somewhat, and the moon is all about embodying herself. But in Aquarius, she's somewhat disembodied, because Aquarius as an energy is somewhat disembodied, or can be somewhat disembodied. So Leo helps us to bring us back into the body. No, but how am I feeling about this? But does my crown fit? Is this still the right crown for me? Or, do I need to change because the world is changing and I'm feeling this desire to change myself? And so this is the kind of pull that we're working with always at full moon in Aquarius, and round about this time of year. But this time, what we also have that's interesting is we have a really strong trine energy. So that's a good aspect. It's not good and bad. It's a graceful, easier Jupiterian aspect, actually, between Jupiter over here in Taurus and Mars over here in Virgo. So there, and this is in an earth, both in earth elements. So it has quite a practical aspect to it. So how do I do it differently? How do I get things done in a better way? And because Jupiter likes to expand things, it's like grow the awareness of how to settle those foundations for whatever is coming. And I think it's kind of been a collective thing some time already for us to be like, how do I build for something I cannot even imagine? Because the world is changing so intensely that we can't actually really, we don't have the tools as yet to understand what we're building, but we can feel that we need to build. And I think that if we bring it down into smaller component parts, we could probably see how much we're changing. But on a big scale, which Jupiter is a big scale, it's kind of hard to know. But then luckily Mars, who actually does the doing, in our chart, Mars is in the very detail-oriented, focused Virgo. So hopefully, where we've got this expand the foundation of Taurus and dig into the details of Virgo with these two planets, this is going to help us this full moon to really do that, even though we may not recognize it for what it is at the time. Saying that, if you know something that you're really trying to grow and focus on the details and set new foundations for, then maybe focus on, can I really advance with that in the energy and the light of this full moon? Because of course the full moon she reflects the greatest amount of the sun's light, and so she is full, so the day and the night are bright. The other thing is Venus is in retrograde. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot being said about Venus in retrograde. It's been coming up in my videos, and I did an actual video on Venus retrograde, or Venus's journey through Leo, some months back now. I'm not sure quite how long ago, but that is on my YouTube channel as well if you want to look that up as to how we are going to be exploring. But now we're actually in that Venus retrograde. And so the journey begins. We're quite early in it. By the time we hit this full moon, we've only been it's only really moved. Venus has only moved a couple of degrees from 28 to 26. But we are in a very reflective space because Venus is in retrograde. So we are going to reflect, and Venus has a lot to do with how we love, who we love. And she's in Leo, so we can take some of those things we said about Leo with the sun in Leo, and we can apply the same things, the same Leo words to Venus in retrograde. So again, I'm reevaluating if this is the right crown for me, if this is the right cloak for me, if this is the right, if I am as a figurehead in myself, because Leo is self, if I am able to project out into the world who I want to be moving forward. So let's just take a role, okay? So if you are the role of mother, or wife or husband or whatever, and you put that role on yourself, and that is a big part of how you are identified in the world. You identify strongly as that role, the world reflects that very strongly back at you. And now with this Venus retrograde in Leo, you're going, but am I just a mother? Am I just a wife? Or if, let's say, you're very defined by your career and that falls away for whatever reason, you get retrenched or your business fails or whatever it is, now what? Now how do I identify myself if I am not that which I thought I was? So there is a lot of stuff happening in that kind of wheelhouse at the moment, and it's going to be going on for a good long while still. So it is a perfect opportunity, again, under the full moon's light, to evaluate me so that I can be Leo and Venus retrograde in the fullest light of the moon. How do I reflect myself out into the world? And if I don't do me, Leo, well, how do I shine out and look after us, Aquarius, if I can't do me? So the reframe, the reevaluation, the building of the new self is very important in order for us to take that energy into the world. And again, I mean, I want to say this is not a new concept. It's certainly not a new concept in my my field of work, But I think it is a relatively new concept because we've been very conditioned to be productive and focus on other. I am doing this for you. I'm supporting this external stuff. And if we bring it into ourselves, then it is selfish. So how do we have self-worth if every time we do something for self, we feel we're being selfish? And selfish can be a word we could use with Leo, and so could self-worth. So you can see where this is a really strong place to be working. And again, the relatively new concept of I need to get good with me. I need to develop right relationship with me. I need to feel authentic and sovereign and true to myself. And that's the projection that I want to take out into the Aquarius world. And with that Jupiter, Mars relationship going on in a very practical earthing element, positive, easy, graceful relationship with this full moon, there is that like, great, actually, I've got some ideas of how to start building that, how to start implementing that. And some of that is small details, and that would be the Mars in Virgo, but we also have Mercury in Virgo. And Mercury is actually the ruler of Virgo. So he's really strong in one of his home signs and detail oriented. So ideas, I've got like ideas of how I can start doing that. Mars doing, Mercury ideas around. So they're both in Virgo, kind of starting to put the pieces together of thinking, planning, ideas, and actually implementing those strategies and ideas with Mars there as well. And Jupiter is flooding the optimum kind of growing energy at that, from a sign that's all about green and growing, Taurus, into another sign that's all about green and growing, Virgo. So I really feel like that's really positive and fun. If we come back to the fact that we have Mercury over here at 5 degrees of Virgo, and directly you can see a thick line. The thicker the lines here usually means the closer the aspect, which means the stronger we will, more strongly we will feel that thing. So if it's a wider aspect, we'll feel it, but it'll be like, you know, your friend phoned you from next door and said, oh, did you hear? Versus your friend bursting into your room and going, oh my God, did you hear? You're obviously going to take that quite differently. So this is a strong aspect because it's 5 degrees of Virgo for Mercury and 5 degrees of Pisces for Saturn. And that is also going to be something that's coming in for this next full moon. It's going to be more sort of active. It's starting to activate a process that's kind of going a little bit longer as we get around to the next full moon at the end of the month of August. So Saturn in retrograde in Pisces is actually ruled by Jupiter and or Neptune, depending how you work with modern planets and traditional versus traditional planets. But let's not dive too deeply off topic for today. Let's just say we've got the Saturn, which is structures, in a sign that is not super structured. Trying to dream. So Pisces wants to dream and Saturn wants to build. And so it's like, how do I build the dream? But like, which is bigger right now? Is it high tide, which actually at full moon it tends to be, the tide is bigger. So therefore it's like, I can feel all the dream, but it's quite hard for me to kind of bring it into a structured format. So there's this kind of ebb and flow happening between Saturn in his own personal energy sitting there in Pisces right now, and then across the pond right opposite him, almost trying to hold his focus, is this very focused Mercury in Virgo. And I quite like this because Saturn can be quite cold, contracting, drying. Now he's in the whole ocean of Pisces. It's quite hard to get dry, but now he's kind of like prefers to be dry, and he's kind of wet and sodden and just not super comfortable. But Mercury's going, okay, just, I know that you're not super comfortable right now, but let's just focus on what is working. So Mercury again kind of helping this journey. I feel like Mercury's quite a good support system for this particular moon. And then, I mean, I can't not mention the same old that I've been mentioning for time and time again in the last few months, that Pluto over here, 28 degrees of Capricorn, is square the nodes, and like really very, very tightly square the nodes at the moment, exceptionally tight. This is a bit of a long term, much of this year is very influenced by this Pluto square the nodes, which is not something that happens regularly at all. And we are very, very tightly in the intensity, again, like the dark lines. You don't see lines for this one on this chart, but like the dark lines, which say this is a stronger aspect, this is now at its strong, really strong, intensive point at this full moon. So again, we've spoken about this a lot, so I don't want to get too far into it, but the nodes have shifted into Aries and Libra, Aries being fire, North Node, again, back to the same sort of conversation that we're having with the Leo energy that I mentioned, because Venus retrograde is also she's very much part of this. She's forming a trine to that North Node, and she's forming a sextile to that South Node. So she is also playing deeply into this reevaluation. And because Aries is also fire, like Leo, because Aries is also about me, myself, I must, and the North Node being our dharmic growth potential trajectory, is saying, I need to look at me. I need to be accountable for me. I need to be independent and interdependent and be prepared to co-create, but not become codependent, which is a shadow of Libra, codependence, indecisiveness, wishy-washy, so focused on the other. Like I said earlier with Leo and with Aquarius energy as well, the tendency to be more the whole group. Virgo is so worried about, Libra is so worried about the other oftentimes that they forget to sort of do their own energetic housekeeping, really, and do their own self-care. So you can see there is a strong planetary thing going on for all of us right now to re-story this story of, I can't look after the other. I can't be a mother and look after my children if I'm falling apart. I can't be a employee and worry about my employer, or I can't be an employer and worry about my employees if I'm not doing my stuff. So whatever role, whatever relationship you find yourself in, if you're not clear on who you are, what you think, what you feel, how your choices, your actions, if you can't know those clearly because they're so muddied by, well, this person wants me to be this and that person wants me to be that, and I'm trying so hard to be things that others need from me that I actually don't know who I am, what I am, where I am strongest and most centered and most connected to my spirit and soul and self. And so there is a very, very strong message here that if you want to be the best you can be in the world, for the next story, you have to do that first in yourself. And again, because we've been conditioned to not, it's super uncomfortable. It's a super uncomfortable thing that we're all having to work with right now, but this is where the energy is. And that's what the nodes are speaking to. But then Pluto being square the nodes is almost like the therapist. And last year I went through a phase where we were having these full moons where we were having Pluto at the T-square point and Saturn and Neptune and all of these big planets at the T-square point. And I think it was in my newsletters last year, I was really acting that out as the outer planet being the therapist to the sun and moon at that time in their relationship with one another. And again, the sun and moon are the greatest lights in the sky. So if we were looking at them in ourselves, they would be our inner yin and yang on many levels. And they would be like, where is my relationship to the day, to the night, to the day, to the dark, to the light, to the feminine, to the masculine, to the active, to the passive, all of those things. Where is that within me? And the outer planet as therapist. And we did a lot of those quite intensely connecting to the full moons last year. And here we find ourselves with Pluto squaring the nodes, playing therapist to our karma and how we're taking the karma that we have brought forward, good and bad karma, it's not always a bad thing, into the dharma of growing myself forward into the best version of me that I can be. So Pluto is a strongly transformative teacher. And I think last year I used the image of Jafar from Aladdin as the sort of kind of idea of what a Plutonic therapist would look like, or Hades, you know, in the Hercules movie. So he's kind of like, seems like the bad guy, but he comes in with this like serious intensity. And one thing you know for sure is he's going to change the way you look at things. Either he's going to push you to escape some kind of prison that you have, self-imposed prison, or he's going to break something of yours so that you don't have that role anymore. Like your job suddenly falls apart and you go, oh, now who am I? As our analogy from earlier. He doesn't usually come with flowers. Let's just put it that way. He doesn't usually just come and say, yay, it's so great to see you, and bibbidi bobbidi boo, you are changed. He's not the fairy godmother. He's the guy that says, this is broken, you're ignoring it, I'm going to spotlight it. Again, we're in a full moon, spotlight, time for change. So I don't know, I'm liking this full moon, but I feel like we are going to feel it. And especially if you have planets and points around any of these spaces that we've really spoken into that are strong, of course, the early degrees of Aquarius or Leo, or any of the fixed signs, which would add Taurus and Scorpio to that. I would also say, you know, the first half of the degrees of Virgo or Pisces, and maybe even any of the fixed signs, the mutable signs. And then I would also look at, yeah, even up to the 15-degree mark of the fixed signs as well, with that 13-degree Jupiter there too. So really, there's you can see by looking at the chart, there's quite a spread of planets. So if we're looking at Virgo, we can say, well, there's stuff going on here in Virgo, so I want to look there. But opposite to Virgo is Pisces, so I want to look there. But square to that would be Aquarius, Sagittarius, Gemini. So if I have planets there, then I'm also going to feel this, even though there's no planets in the sky there right now. So that's why I say just bringing in what is in my chart. And if I put my chart there, how would that be impacting the whole picture? So that is always really how you're going to make this more personal, is if you look at your own chart and you say, is anything planet-wise being touched literally by another planet? Because that's like a good old activation, ping, wake up. But also the aspects, squares especially are ones to pay attention to, or oppositions or conjunctions, which is the touch. But, you know, we don't want to go too far into any of this. If you're looking to get a little bit more support and guidance, please look at the link below this video for my various links. And you can always book a session with me to get started, to learn to understand. I have got a video on my YouTube channel about how to draw up a chart for yourself if you feel like you're ready to start diving and trying to figure that out for yourself. And also the Venus retrograde one might be helpful. And on my website, those old newsletters that you might want to go back for a look at are also available. You would have to fish a little bit to find them, because I haven't got the exact full moon dates that they were for now. But I hope this has been helpful, and I'm sending you lots of full moon love, and I will be back with a new moon reading, and of course my card readings, which come out weekly. So keep a lookout. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to my channel, do that, because then it'll help you to be able to get back to me quicker. And I look forward to seeing you on the next update. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.